This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So the Browns get another victory in a week where everybody counts them out. Everybody thinks that they're dead. And I talked on this on the live stream, and I'll touch on it a little briefly before I get into it, is just count the amount of people who were wrong about this team at the beginning of the season, right? Oh, this team's going to be, people were predicting that this team with a Deshaun Watson healthy. Hey, what's up? It's time to do winners and losers. But before we do winners and losers, there was some news that broke late, well, not late, but at night, right after I uploaded my recap video of the Browns game, which is that the Browns have signed to their practice squad and they plan to put Joe Flacco on the active roster. Now, there are a ton of questions that come up with this. What does this mean for DTR? What does this mean for other guys on the roster? I'll give you my guess on what it means. And remember, this is my hypothesis on it. I think that obviously Joe Flacco's not going to stay on the practice squad. He's going to be moved to the active roster, which probably means PJ Walker is probably not going to be anywhere near that. Like, he might be inactive now if he stays on the team, but I doubt he is the backup. I think that the move is for Joe Flacco to be the backup. I think they're going to continue with DTR. I know a lot of people have that question or that assumption. Here's why I don't think that assumption is correct. And again, if I'm wrong on this, who cares? But this is why I think that assumption is incorrect. One, I really do think that the Browns don't want to get caught playing musical chairs with the quarterback position more than what's necessary, right? It's one thing if you have to start somebody else because the starter's injured. It's another thing entirely when you keep yanking quarterbacks in and out the lineup, right? One is a matter of circumstance and not really going to have an effect on stuff. Another is kind of forcing the issue, right? And I know that there's a lot of people who are super eager to try to get Joe Flacco in here because you either weren't super impressed with what DTR did in his first game, plus you don't think that DTR, like a rookie, is the right person for the job right now. And those are understandable takes. I would also wonder how qualified like Joe Flacco is at this point is to do that. Like, I understand he's done it before, but that was well over 10 years ago that he did that. And he hasn't been remotely close to that player that he was 10 years ago, even like in 2015. I think it's kind of wishful thinking to think at 38 he's going to dust off that magic. He might, like, who knows? But I think it's just as likely as like DTR doing something like that, right? I don't think it's very likely at all. I think it's, again, I think we have this conversation with quarterbacks all the time. Sometimes as fans, we feel like what is more comfortable to us is what's better because, you know, Joe Flacco's a name that we know. We know that he's been good decent in the NFL before. So that's more comfortable to us than the relative unknown of DTR. I understand that, but I don't think that they're going to try to like bring him along in 2 weeks and force him out on the field, no matter what DTR is doing, or try to put him out on the field the second that DTR struggles. Look, if we learn one thing about this team, if we learn one thing about this coaching staff, they don't like to make quarterback changes unless it's absolutely necessary, right? When did they go from DTR to PJ as the backup? That was well after Deshaun had got hurt, right? Like, Deshaun got hurt. He had the bad game. They went to the bye week. They decided, okay, we're just going to go with PJ Walker. Right. They made that choice to move on because DTR threw 3 interceptions. Now, if he comes out here against Denver and throws 3 interceptions, he probably won't be the starter anymore. They will go to Joe Flacco. But I do think it's going to take something like that for DTR to get benched. I think that some people think that, oh, well, DTR has to play amazing over the next week or two in order to stay the starter. I don't think it's that. I think as long as he's not a detriment to winning, he'll be the starter. I don't think that they're super eager to start a fourth quarterback this season. But I do think that Joe Flacco is the backup plan. If DTR, starts making a ton of mistakes, starts turning the ball over multiple times a game, starts to look a little bit more of a disaster, or if it's obvious that he can't adjust to teams sitting on some of the short stuff and all of that, then I think they'll make the move to Joe Flacco. But I think they're going to need a reason to make the move to Joe Flacco. I don't think they're just going to go to it because he's Joe Flacco. I just don't think that that's the case. This ain't bringing in Tom Brady, right? Like, this is bringing in Joe Flacco, a guy who's been a practice squad / backup quarterback for like the last 4 or 5 years. So, I think the expectations for Joe Flacco are a little bit out of whack here. But yeah, I think he's going to be brought here to be the backup. Who knows? We might get to this press conference today and Kevin is all like cagey about who's going to start next week. And then we'll know, okay, maybe they're not sticking with DTR. But I think as of right now, late Monday night, they're probably going to stick with DTR until DTR gives them a real reason to not want to stick with them anymore. And I don't think that anything that we saw on Sunday was so deterrent or so bad that they don't feel like they can go with him. That's just my thought on the whole Joe Flacco thing. Is it a replacement? Is it not? I think that that's really what it is. Like, is he there to mentor DTR? In small ways, right? Like on the sideline, you give a little bit help here and there, but I think he's also there to be the backup, right? Like, he's there to be the backup. If all things go wrong with DTR, we will put Joe Flacco in and we feel comfortable rolling with Joe Flacco. I think that is the plan, but I don't think he's here to take DTR's job off rip. I think he's here more or less to replace PJ Walker. And if he has to play, he will play. Or if he has to start because DTR is just not there yet, he will start. He's a veteran. You feel fine about his ability to kind of do it. But he's I think he's more of a last resort than a second option, an alternative option to DTR. I think that they rather would stick with DTR for the rest of the season. But if it becomes untenable, they'll go to Joe Flacco. Look, my goal for DTR this week was just get through this game, right? Anybody who's watched this channel knows I didn't have great expectations for him. I didn't even really set an expectation line with him for this week. I just said, hey, just get through this game. 1, don't be a disaster. 2, 3, win it. You could do those 3 things. It's a successful start, right? This is going to be a little bit of a process. The good news is that you have room to make that process happen with the defense that you have. But it's going to be a little bit of a process, right? Remember, and I will take you guys all the way back to Jacoby Brissett. And if you've heard me talk about this before, you know what I'm going to bring up. When Jacoby Brissett played that first game against the Carolina Panthers, I remember the comments full of that video. In that video, if you go back and look at the video of us reacting to that first Panthers game, is, boy, Jacoby Brissett stunk. Should we think about starting Josh Dobbs? Should we think about signing somebody? Because it's just obvious that Jacoby Brissett, like, there was a lot of like Jacoby Brissett stinks after his first start against the Carolina Panthers. But that stuff started to go away the longer he played in this offense. I think there were a lot of drops. I think that if David Njoku has a better game, we're not talking about this DTR game quite the same, to be honest with you. There were a couple key drops by David, and he acknowledged it himself. I thought that touchdown throw with the pass in the end zone was a great ball by DTR, got dropped by David Njoku. If DTR, instead of 163, an interception, no touchdowns, had 215, a touchdown and an interception, I think a lot of people are looking at this game differently. And the only thing stopping him from having that was drops. And that makes sense, right? You're adjusting to a new quarterback throwing you the ball. DTR throws that short intermediate stuff with significantly more speed than Deshaun Watson, like significantly less touch than Deshaun Watson. And I think that you saw that effect guys, and they didn't catch the ball as cleanly as they should. And they had to make that adjustment during the game. I remember the same thing was kind of true when Jacoby Brissett stepped in. You know, the guys were talking about all the adjustments they have to make to catch a faster football because the ball just came in. It was either Jacoby Brissett they were making that adjustment to, or when Deshaun Watson came back for Jacoby Brissett. One of those switches. Well, either way, you look at any quarterback change throughout NFL history, you're going to see a lot more drops, especially when you're making a full-time change at quarterback. You're going to see a lot more drops from the wide receivers because it's an adjustment to catch it and gain speed. Usually that thing takes like a game to get over, and they'll get over it in the game. So I think that, you know, the stat line isn't really representative of the level of game that was played. I think there's a lot for DTR to improve upon. I think there was a lot more there for him to execute off of. But at the end of the day, he didn't take that many sacks. He only took 1 sack and only cost him 2 yards. So good job on that. He didn't really turn the ball over too much through the 1 interception. It came off the chest of Amari Cooper. It's kind of a combo. You want Amari to catch that and you want that ball to be a little bit more accurate. So not really like a horrible interception. I thought he had a couple throws that were a little scary in this game. More scary than like the interception throw. But you know, it is what it is. The defense was able to recover from it. They didn't give up any points on that interception. So, yeah, I think DTR was a winner today. And then stepped up big time, made some big time throws in the final drive of that game. And that's what was required of him to win. And he was able to satisfy that. Let's see how he can build off of that. Hopefully he gets an opportunity to build off of that in Denver, because I think that it's worthwhile. And the reason I think it's worthwhile over like just immediately jumping to Joe Flacco is I do think that there's something to be said about his accuracy on time. When he's throwing the football and he's on time, he does have pretty impressive accuracy, and something to be said about his impressive athleticism. And if you want to know how good of an athlete DTR is, like, go look at his college stuff. Like, he's a pretty spectacular plus athlete at the quarterback position. And he has a great arm, at least in short to intermediate situations. And I think that is a more promising collection of skills for this Browns offense than Joe Flacco, who's kind of like you're just settling for he can throw the ball and be fine, but you're not going to get anything else out of that. And as long as DTR can throw the ball and be fine, I think it's actually more beneficial to be with him because of the plus athleticism that he offers you at the quarterback position. So that's where I'm at with DTR. That's why I like DTR over Joe Flacco. And that's why I think that they should probably just stick with that. But we'll see what they end up doing ultimately. But that's my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace. So let me explain kind of in further detail what I saw from DTR and why I think that it might be less spoken, why it might be a little bit of an underrated take to kind of take DTR here in this situation over Joe Flacco, because I think a lot of people are eager to go with Joe because they're familiar with him. But I think there's a serious argument to be made with sticking with DTR in this spot.